Clint Eastwood. For over 60 years, he's been Hollywood's undisputed man of few words. His silence is legendary. His stare can cut through steel, but what happens when that silence breaks? Now, let's be clear, Eastwood has never actually sat down and published a formal hate list, but he doesn't have to. Behind that iconic squint lies a history of bitter rivalries with some of Hollywood's biggest names. These are the 5 celebrities Clint Eastwood has reportedly clashed with most, and the stories behind why some relationships in Tinseltown are fractured forever. In Hollywood, a town that runs on fake smiles and manufactured friendships, Clint Eastwood has always been an outlier. He's a man who operates on his own terms, a director famous for his lightning-fast shoots and a star known for his unfiltered honesty. This approach has won him Oscars and the respect of millions, but it's also put him on a collision course with other titans of the industry. Decades of on-set accounts, public statements, and nasty legal battles paint a very clear picture of the people who crossed his unwritten lines. And these aren't just minor disagreements. There are fundamental clashes of personality, politics, and professionalism. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the on-set blow-ups, the public insults, and the personal betrayals that led to Eastwood's most intense conflicts. We'll explore the professional disagreements that got personal and the personal fallouts that became the stuff of Hollywood legend. From actors who challenged his methods to directors who questioned his historical accuracy, these are the 5 figures who reportedly found themselves on the wrong side of Clint Eastwood. Let's get into it. Coming in at number 5 is a name that represents not some fiery public feud, but a quiet, philosophical clash between 2 of Hollywood's most dedicated craftsmen, Leonardo DiCaprio. Their story is a collision of 2 wildly different ways of making movies. It was a partnership that looked perfect on paper, but, according to those on set, turned into a masterclass in creative incompatibility. The setting for this showdown was the 2011 biopic J. Edgar. Eastwood was directing, and DiCaprio was starring as the controversial FBI boss. The buzz was huge. Eastwood, the master of efficiency and gut instinct, was teaming up with DiCaprio, the king of deep dive, research-heavy preparation. What could possibly go wrong? Well, to get the friction, you have to understand their methods. Clint Eastwood is a legend for his one-take wonder style. He believes in capturing the raw, unpolished truth of a performance the first time. His sets are famously quiet. Instead of a loud action, he's known to just murmur, whenever you're ready, pushing actors to trust their instincts. He thinks over-rehearsal is the enemy of authenticity. A script supervisor who worked with him said Eastwood wants everything to sound like the first time it's said. It's fast, it's decisive, and it's produced some of the most iconic films ever made. Leonardo DiCaprio, on the other hand, is the ultimate modern method actor. His process is built on total immersion and exhaustive research. He wants to explore every angle of a character, which means he's famous for asking for more takes to try different line readings and emotional beats. He believes perfection is found through repetition. As director Alejandro Inarritu once said, even when Leo nails a take, he's the first to say, "Let's do one more." When these 2 opposing forces met on the set of J. Edgar, the tension was reportedly immediate, though always professional. Sources from the production describe a quiet struggle. DiCaprio showed up with piles of research, determined to discuss the historical and psychological motivations behind every scene. An insider on the film put it bluntly: Leo wanted to discuss motivation. Clint, on the other hand, would listen patiently and then say, "Okay, just say the lines." The real tug-of-war was over the number of takes. DiCaprio would finish a heavy, emotional scene and, as usual, ask for another take. Eastwood, happy with what he got, would often shut it down with a simple, "Nope, we're good." There were no shouting matches. It was a silent battle of wills. One crew member called it watching a racehorse try to run in cowboy boots. For his part, DiCaprio publicly praised Eastwood, saying it was a phenomenal thing to witness how much the director trusts his instincts. He admitted the pressure was on, saying Eastwood expects you to do the same as an actor. Despite the on-set tension, the film got made, and DiCaprio's performance was praised. even earning him a Golden Globe nomination. But the aftermath speaks volumes. In a town where great directors and actors often reteam, Eastwood and DiCaprio have never worked together again. It seems this was a quiet, professional parting of the ways, proving that two masters of their craft can have two completely irreconcilable visions of how to do the job. At number 4, we have a figure who represents a clash not just of personalities, but of entire eras. This wasn't a feud that played out on a movie set, but one fought over the very soul of the Western. The man in question? None other than John Wayne, the undisputed king of the classic Hollywood Western. His conflict with Clint Eastwood symbolized the generational gap between the old guard and the new, between the romantic myth of the West and its dark, violent future. By the early 70s, John Wayne was the living embodiment of the American frontier. Hero, his characters were stoic, honorable men who lived by a clear moral code. His West was a place of hope and manifest destiny. Then along came Clint Eastwood, fresh from the gritty and cynical Dollars trilogy. Eastwood brought a new kind of cowboy to the screen, the morally ambiguous anti-hero, motivated by greed or revenge. His West was a dirty, unforgiving place, a far cry from the sanitized frontier of Wayne's films. This difference in philosophy was the kindling for a feud that was lit by one specific film, Eastwood's 1973 directorial debut, High Plains Drifter. High Plains Drifter was a brutal film. Eastwood's mysterious stranger rides into town and unleashes a terrifying kind of biblical revenge, starting with 3 murders and a rape in the first 10 minutes. It culminated with him literally painting the town red and renaming it Hell. For Wayne, this wasn't just a different take on the genre. It was an insult to it. The conflict became direct and personal when Eastwood, an admirer of Wayne, actually approached him to star in a film together called The Hostiles. Eastwood wanted Wayne to play an aging rancher opposite his own younger character. In response, Wayne didn't just say no. He sent Eastwood a scathing letter. According to Eastwood, Wayne wrote that he was disgusted with High Plains Drifter. He felt the film misrepresented the American people who settled this country. Wayne was deeply offended by what he saw as a cynical and nihilistic vision that disrespected the legacy he'd spent a lifetime building. Eastwood's reaction was one of understanding, but not agreement. He saw Wayne's view as that of an older generation that couldn't grasp the shift in cinema. It was meant to be a fable, Eastwood later explained. A speculation on what happens when a town lets evil happen and its conscience comes back to haunt it. Asterisk, but for Wayne, the line had been crossed. The two titans of the Western never worked together, and The Hostiles was scrapped. The feud represented a passing of the torch, whether Wayne liked it or not, from the clean-cut heroes of yesterday to the complex anti-heroes of a new, grittier era of filmmaking. Our third entry marks a shift from clashes over style to a direct and very public war of words over history, race, and representation. This was a feud between two of Hollywood's most uncompromising directors, Spike Lee. It exploded in 2008, igniting a fierce debate that touched on some of the most sensitive issues in the film industry. The conflict was centered around Eastwood's 2006 World War II films, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima. The ambitious companion films told the story of the battle from both American and Japanese perspectives. Flags of Our Fathers specifically focused on the American soldiers who raised the iconic flag on Mount Suribachi, but for Spike Lee, there was a massive omission. While promoting his own World War II film, Miracle at St. Anna, Lee took aim at Eastwood during a press conference. He pointed out that in over 4 hours of film depicting the Battle of Iwo Jima, Eastwood had failed to cast a single black actor. Clint Eastwood made 2 films about Iwo Jima, and there was not one Negro actor on the screen, Lee stated, adding, in his vision of Iwo Jima, Negro soldiers did not exist. Simple as that. Lee's criticism was a moral and historical challenge, arguing Eastwood was perpetuating a whitewashed version of history, as black soldiers did serve at Iwo Jima. The comments made headlines, and the notoriously private Eastwood was forced to respond. And respond he did, with the blunt force of a Dirty Harry one-liner. In an interview, Eastwood fired back, A guy like him should shut his face. He defended his film, arguing it was historically accurate to the men in the famous flag-raising photo, none of whom were black. Has he ever studied the history? Eastwood asked. If I go ahead and put an African-American actor in there, people go, this guy's lost his mind. I mean, it's not accurate. The feud escalated instantly. Lee retorted, the man is not my father and we're not on a plantation either. While calling Eastwood a great director, he added, he sounds like an angry old man. The public back and forth became a media spectacle. From Lee's view, the presence of black soldiers in the broader battle deserved acknowledgement. From Eastwood's view, he was telling a specific story about specific men. The rift was reportedly so significant that Steven Spielberg eventually stepped in to broker a peace. In the years since, Lee has said the issue was squashed, but the two have never worked together, and the dispute remains a powerful example of the clash between two brilliant artists with fundamentally different views on the intersection of history, art, and responsibility. If the conflict with Spike Lee was a battle over history, the feud with our number 2 entry, Michael Moore, was an all-out war over politics, patriotism, and the very definition of heroism. This wasn't a quiet disagreement. It was an ideological clash that erupted with public insults and even a comment that many took as a threat. The animosity between Clint Eastwood and Michael Moore is rooted in their profoundly different worldviews. Moore, the provocative documentarian behind Fahrenheit 9/11, built his career challenging American foreign policy. Eastwood, on the other hand, embodies traditional American values and a deep reverence for the military. To Eastwood, Moore's brand of filmmaking was reportedly seen as disrespectful and exploitative. The tension boiled over in 2005 at an awards dinner. According to Moore, when Eastwood took the stage, he said he would kill Moore if he ever showed up at his house with a camera crew. Moore recalled Eastwood barking, I mean it. I'll shoot you. The room filled with nervous laughter, but the comment, joke or not, stuck. Eastwood later reframed the incident, suggesting his words were a hypothetical response about a trespasser, not a direct threat. But he couldn't resist adding a jab. Years later, joking, everyone is saying I threatened to kill Michael Moore, but it isn't a bad idea. The feud was reignited with a vengeance with Eastwood's 2014 blockbuster American Sniper. The biopic of Navy SEAL Chris Kyle was a cultural phenomenon. For Eastwood, it was a tribute to a soldier's sacrifice. For Michael Moore, it was something else entirely. Soon after its release, Moore tweeted that he was taught snipers are cowards after his uncle was killed by one in World War II. Though he later clarified he wasn't directly talking about the film, he followed up with a detailed critique, praising Bradley Cooper's performance but slamming the film's historical inaccuracies and for its characters calling Iraqis savages. The comments poured gasoline on a raging fire. Moore was widely condemned. For his perceived attack on a fallen soldier, Eastwood largely stayed above the public fray, but his position was clear. He saw Moore's criticism as an attack on the very idea of military heroism. The two men represent polar opposite ends of the American political spectrum, and their feud is a perfect capsule of the country's deep cultural divides. At the top of our list is a name that represents a conflict far deeper and more painful than any professional disagreement. This was a battle that blurred the lines between love and work, partnership and betrayal, ending in a bitter, decade-long legal war. The number 1 person on the list of Clint Eastwood's most significant clashes is the late actress and director, Sondra Locke. Their story is one of Hollywood's most notorious and tragic cautionary tales. Sondra Locke and Clint Eastwood met in 1975 and became inseparable, making 6 films together, including The Outlaw Josie Wales and Sudden Impact. For over a decade, they were a Hollywood power couple. But their relationship ended in an acrimonious firestorm in 1989. The fallout would define the rest of Locke's life. The separation was brutal. According to Locke's court filings, she came home one day to find Eastwood had changed the locks and put her belongings in storage. This kicked off a landmark palimony lawsuit. The legal proceedings were ugly. with Eastwood's team reportedly trying to downplay their 13-year relationship. In 1990, the suit was settled. Locke received money and, crucially, what she believed was a golden ticket to restart her career. A $1.5 million development deal to direct films at Warner Bros., Eastwood's home studio. This was her chance to finally step out of his shadow. However, what followed, from Locke's perspective, was a systematic sabotage of her career. For 3 years, she pitched over 30 projects to Warner Bros. Every single one was rejected. Suspicious, she filed a second lawsuit in 1995 for fraud. Her allegation was shocking. She claimed the development deal was a sham, a bogus agreement secretly financed by Eastwood himself just to get her to drop the first lawsuit, with no intention of ever letting her work. She argued that Eastwood had used his immense power at the studio to effectively blacklist her. The fraud trial was a media sensation. Eastwood denied the allegations on the stand, but jurors later told the press his hostile demeanor toward Locke helped sway them. Just as the jury was deliberating, a confidential settlement was reached. Locke told reporters, "This was never about money. It was about my fighting for my professional rights." Locke's career, however, never recovered. She directed only one more feature film. The saga with Sondra Locke stands as the most personal and damaging public conflict of Eastwood's life, moving beyond art or politics into a realm of deep personal grievance and profound betrayal, from on-set friction to full-blown public wars over politics. History and love, what's the common thread here? It seems to be crossing a line with a man who does not forget. Clint Eastwood built a career on control, efficiency, and unwavering conviction. When those principles were challenged by an actor's method, a director's critique, or a partner's lawsuit, the response was often swift, decisive, and permanent. These stories offer a fascinating glimpse behind the stoic facade of a Hollywood legend. They reveal a man fiercely protective of his vision and his values. Whether you see him as a principled artist or an unforgiving figure holding a grudge, one thing is certain: in Clint Eastwood's world, respect is earned, and crossing him is a risk few are willing to take more than once. What do you think of these Hollywood feuds? Was Eastwood justified, or did he take things too far? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe for more inside stories from Hollywood.